Are you going through a financial crisis? Are you a citizen of the world's largest economy? Or are you planning to travel to the United States in search of work and are concerned about the country's economic status? Then this video is for you, because we will discuss how the US government's actions and post-COVID money printing will severely harm the US economy in the medium to long term, causing rising mortgage rates and drop of overall consumer purchasing power. Stay tuned. The COVID-19 pandemic has affected economies all over the world. In the United States, it's caused both a public health crisis and an economic crisis. The pandemic has caused disruption in people's lives, overloaded the hospital system, and slowed down the world economy. Although the US economy suffered one of the sharpest contractions in the 2020-2022 period, the Biden administration is taking lots of measures in order to ensure the economy is slowly starting to get back on track. This crisis caused significant swings in household spending. Retail sales, which primarily track consumer goods sales, have had their numbers plummet. Although in some industries, such as grocery stores, pharmacies, and non-store retailers, demand rose as lockdown measures were implemented, others, such as clothing stores, furniture, and appliance stores, food services and drinking establishments, sporting and hobby stores, and gasoline stations, experienced declines in demand. The COVID-19 crisis has harmed the country's industrial output. Since early 2020, the industrial production has fallen precipitously and has only partially recovered. This decline poses a host of challenges for the U.S. manufacturing sector, which employs nearly 13 million workers, especially those that depend on workers whose jobs cannot be carried out remotely. Following a 0.1 increase in December, inflation increased by 0.5% in January 2023, according to the Consumer Price Index report issued this year. The Consumer Price Index includes a wide range of everyday goods and services, reaching a 6.4% annual increase. In contrast to expectations of 0.3% month-over-month and 5.5% year-over-year, the core CPI increased 0.4% and 5.6% when volatile food and energy were excluded. Economists polled by Dow Jones predicted gains of 0.4% and 6.2% respectively for March. According to a Labor Department report, inflation began to rise in 2023 as consumers felt the effects of rising fuel, gas, and housing prices. According to the Bureau of Labor Statistics, rising housing costs accounted for roughly half of the monthly increase. More than a third of the index is made up of this component, which increased 0.7% month-over-month and 7.9% year-over-year. Energy prices rose by 2% and 8.7% respectively, while food prices rose by 0.5% and 10.1%. Rising prices resulted in lower real wages for workers. According to a separate BLS report that adjusts wages for inflation, average hourly earnings fell 0.2% month-over-month and 1.8% year-over-year. While price increases have slowed in recent months, January's data show that inflation remains a force in a U.S. economy that is on the verge of entering a recession this year. This has occurred despite Federal Reserve efforts to alleviate the situation. Since March 2022, the central bank has raised its benchmark interest rate 8 times, as inflation reached its highest level in 41 years last summer. In recent months, the average mortgage rate has skyrocketed, making it even more difficult for first-time homebuyers to get on the housing ladder. The typical 30-year mortgage rate was roughly 3% at the beginning of 2022. Although mortgage rates have been low for some time, they started to rise at the beginning of the year. Now, the national average for mortgage rates is over 7%. A few percentage points may not seem like much, but when you're talking about a few $100,000 in debt, they add up. For example, on a $300,000 mortgage, an increase from 3% to 7% would increase the average monthly payment from $1,265 to $1,996. That's an extra $731 per month on top of everything else's already skyrocketing prices. To help the economy recover from the COVID problem, the US is creating money, although some are unsure how far this will go. One of several strategies the Federal Reserve is using to stabilize the economy in the face of the coronavirus crisis is to print out money at an unprecedented rate. According to data from the Fed, a board indicator of the dollar's stock, known as M2, increased from $15.34 trillion or 11.87 trillion British pounds at the beginning of the year to $18.72 trillion. The U.S. central bank appears to have the ultimate superpower in its frantic scramble to save the American economy. It works like a charm. The Federal Reserve can create dollars out of nothing with a few keystrokes on a computer. effectively printing money and injecting it into the commercial banking system, much like an electronic deposit. According to Oxford Economics, by the end of this year, the Fed is expected to have purchased another $3.5 trillion in government securities with these newly created dollars, one of many tools it is using to help prop up the ailing economy during the pandemic. As a result of this strategy's increased money supply and lower interest rates, credit is also made simpler to get. According to experts, the economy would have already collapsed in the absence of these and other emergency steps by the Fed. In a recent news conference, Fed Chair Jerome Powell said that these purchases had contributed to the recent substantial improvement in market conditions. In this case, the federal government's bank is not simply creating vast sums of money from nothing. In effect, the government is using the newly created dollars to pay down its debt. It's a perverse tactic. While the average American needs to work in order to afford for everyday life, the Fed simply prints out money, ultimately causing inflation and pushing the burden to those who earn the least and whose budgets are most affected by rising fuel and food costs. Have you been feeling the effects of inflation on your budget? What do you think this step of creating more dollars will do to the US economy in the long term? Let us know in the comments below. Make sure to subscribe to our channel and stay tuned for more updates. Until next time, goodbye.